My name is Daniel, and for as long as I can remember, my younger brother Mark and I did everything together. We grew up in a small town outside of Austin, Texas, where our father worked construction, and our mom waited tables. We didn't have much, but we had each other. Mark was always the dreamer, the smooth talker, the one who could charm anyone in a room. I was the steady one, the planner, the worker. Together, we always said, we made the perfect team. When I turned 26 and Mark was 24, we decided to take a risk. We pooled every cent we had saved, borrowed some money from our uncle, and opened a small auto repair shop. It wasn't glamorous, but we grew up around cars. Our dad taught us how to fix engines before we could even drive. I can still remember the smell of oil and fresh paint the day we opened. The sign above the garage door read, Johnson Brothers Auto, and I felt a swell of pride seeing our name in bold red letters. At first, it was everything I dreamed of. We worked side by side, sweating through long Texas afternoons, laughing when we messed up, high-fiving when customers came back happy. Mark handled the front desk, chatting with clients, flashing his easy grin. I worked in the bays, my hands black with grease, my heart full of hope. But even then, little cracks were starting to show. One night, after a 12-hour shift, I sat with Mark in the office, going over receipts. "Mark, we can't spend this much on advertising already," I said, pointing at the numbers. He leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Relax, Danny, you gotta spend money to make money. Besides, people love me. I'll bring in more customers than you can count." I laughed nervously, but something in his tone unsettled me. Still, I trusted him. He was my brother. Blood. As months passed, the shop began to grow. We started getting regular customers, neighbors recommending us to their friends. For the first time in our lives, we weren't just surviving. We were building something. And then came the night I'll never forget. We'd just closed up when an old friend from high school stopped by. His name was Jason, my best friend since 9th grade. He worked in logistics now, smart guy, always good with numbers. He looked around the shop and said, "Damn, Danny, you've built something real here. If you ever need someone to help manage the business side, give me a call." I smiled, but before I could answer, Mark cut in. "We don't need anyone else. Thanks, but this is a family thing." Jason gave me a look, half amused, half confused, and shrugged before leaving. Later that night, I asked Mark, "Why'd you shut him down like that?" "Jason could have been a huge help," Mark's expression hardened. "Because I don't trust him. You're either with me or against me, Danny. And if you're with me, then it's just us, brothers, got it?" I nodded because what else could I do? He was my brother. Back then, I couldn't imagine how wrong I was. At first, everything looked fine. The shop was busy, customers came in steady, and Mark was always bragging about how much money we were pulling in. But the numbers never added up. I'd sit in the office late at night, going through receipts, and I'd see gaps, missing payments, jobs that were cash only with no record. When I asked Mark about it, he'd shrug it off. "Relax, Danny, that's how business works. Some things you don't need to write down." I didn't like it, but I kept quiet. He was my brother. I wanted to believe him. Then small things started to pile up. Tools went missing. Suppliers started calling me directly, asking why invoices weren't paid. I remember one guy saying, "Your brother told me you'd cover the balance next week." I had no idea what he was talking about. I confronted Mark one night in the garage. "Are you taking money out of the business?" He laughed in my face. "Don't be paranoid. You sound like Dad." But his eyes didn't meet mine. Weeks later, I got the real shock. A loyal customer, Mrs. Henderson, came in furious. "Your brother charged me double for the parts," she said, waving the receipt. I went online and checked. You think I'm stupid? I apologized 100 times, promised to fix it, but the look in her eyes cut me deep. Trust was everything in a small town. That night I tried again with Mark. "You can't keep doing this. You're going to ruin us." He slammed his fist on the desk. "Us? This is my shop as much as yours. Stop acting like you're the only one working here." I stared at him, stunned. "I'm not acting, Mark. I'm actually here 12 hours a day, fixing cars, paying bills." "What are you doing? Running scams?" He stood up nose to nose with me. "You think you're better than me? You think customers come here for you? They come for me, my charm, my connections. Without me, you're nothing." That was the first time I saw the truth. He didn't see me as his brother anymore. He saw me as competition. The breaking point came a few months later. One of our suppliers called me directly and said, "I can't extend your credit anymore. Mark took out a loan in the shop's name and hasn't paid a dime back." My stomach dropped. A loan? Without telling me? I rushed to the bank the next morning, and sure enough, there it was. Tens of thousands under Johnson Brothers Auto, with both our names on the papers. And Mark had signed it without even asking me. That night, I lost it. "How could you do this without me? You put us in debt we can't pay." He leaned back in his chair, completely calm. "Don't be so dramatic. Money's money. We'll figure it out." "Figure it out? You lied to me, Mark. You used my name." He finally snapped, pointing at me with rage. "I did it because you're weak. You're too careful, too scared. I'm the one making moves, I'm the one taking risks. And if you don't like it, maybe you shouldn't be my partner." Silence fell. My chest felt tight. For the first time, I realized, maybe I shouldn't. I didn't sleep all night after that conversation. I sat in the kitchen, staring into a cup of cold coffee, trying to figure out when exactly my brother stopped being my brother. Maybe it was when he started pocketing money on the side, or when he looked me straight in the eyes and lied. Or maybe even earlier, when we first opened the shop and he acted like it was all his doing. In the morning, I came to the shop and the creditors were already waiting. 2 men in sharp suits, arms folded. "We'd like to talk about the debt," one of them said, handing me papers. I looked at the numbers and felt my knees go weak. "What is this?" I turned to Mark. "You told me it was nothing, that we'd handle it." "This isn't nothing, Mark. This is tens of thousands of dollars." He didn't even flinch. Just shrugged. "I told you not to worry. I've got a plan." "A plan?" I exploded. "Your plan is to drag my life down with yours." The creditors exchanged a look. One of them said, "You'll sort out who's responsible. But you both owe us." When they left, I felt everything inside me collapse. I turned to my brother and said, "I'm not your partner anymore," he smirked. "Seriously? And what are you going to do without me?" "You're nothing. You've always been in my shadow." I walked out. My chest burned with rage and betrayal. But somewhere deep down, for the first time, a thought appeared. What if he's wrong? The first weeks were hell. I worked alone just to avoid him. I even slept in the shop, afraid he'd pull something behind my back. But one evening, just as I was locking up, I heard a familiar voice. "Danny, is that really you?" I turned and saw Jason, my old friend from high school. The same Jason my brother always called a loser, a dreamer, dead weight. We hadn't seen each other in 10 years, but he looked almost the same. "Jason." My throat went dry. "What are you doing here?" "Moved back to town." Saw the sign and thought, no way, that has to be Danny. We went to a cafe nearby and talked until late. I told him everything, about the business, the debt, how Mark had practically destroyed it. Jason just listened, not interrupting once. Then he said, "You know, I always knew you had a good head on your shoulders. You work honest, and you've got real skill. If you're ready to start over, I want in." I laughed. "After all this, you still want to tie yourself to me?" He nodded. "Because I know you won't betray me." And in that moment, I realized how long it had been since I'd heard those words. The first weeks with Jason were both terrifying and liberating. We didn't have much, just an idea, a couple thousand in savings, and 2 pairs of hands willing to work day and night. But we had something I never had with Mark: trust. Jason had a knack for design, the kind of creativity that turned a plain storefront into something people wanted to walk into. I focused on logistics, numbers, and building relationships with suppliers. For the first time, everything felt balanced. One night, as we sat in the office surrounded by invoices and coffee cups, Jason leaned back in his chair and said, "You know, your brother always hated me. He said I'd never amount to anything." I smiled bitterly. He made me choose back then. Him or you. I chose him. And it was the worst decision of my life. Jason shook his head. "Nah, it just took you a while to see who he really was. Better late than never." Meanwhile, Mark wasn't staying quiet. He spread rumors around town. That I'd stolen money, that I'd run the business into the ground. He undercut our prices, tried to lure away suppliers, even threatened employees who dared to switch over to us. But people started noticing the cracks in his empire. Customers complained about cheap products, shady contracts, hidden fees. His hunger for quick cash was eating his own business alive. We, on the other hand, grew slowly but steadily. Every new client felt like a small victory. Every smile from a customer was proof we were on the right path. I won't lie. I was still haunted by guilt. At night, I replayed memories of my brother and me as kids, fixing bikes in the garage, sneaking out to watch late-night baseball games. How did we end up here? But each time I thought about crawling back, I remembered the lies, the debt, the way he looked me in the eye and told me I was nothing. And every morning, I woke up, walked into our shop with Jason already cracking jokes by the counter, and realized I finally had something worth fighting for. Within a few months, the difference between our paths became obvious to everyone. Mark's company, once loud and flashy, started collapsing under the weight of his shortcuts. Clients were suing him over broken contracts. Former employees told stories about unpaid wages, pressure, and intimidation. The same people who used to admire him now crossed the street to avoid shaking his hand. Meanwhile, our little business with Jason was thriving. We didn't make millions, but we built something solid, a reputation. People knew they could trust us. When we said we'd deliver, we delivered. When we made a promise, we kept it. I'll never forget the day one of Mark's former clients walked into our office. He set a thick folder on the counter and said, "Your brother cheated me. I want to work with you instead." You're not like him. I just stood there for a second, unable to answer. Those words, "You're not like him," it felt like a wound finally starting to close. Jason grinned and shook the man's hand, but later that night he nudged me and said, "See? All those years he tried to convince you that you were nothing without him. But look at us now. You're proving him wrong every single day." By then, Mark had become desperate. He tried to drag me back with threats, then with pity, then with offers of partnership. But the more he clung to his empire, the faster it slipped through his fingers. His own greed was eating him alive, and me, for the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving in my brother's shadow. I was standing tall, with Jason by my side, with customers who believed in us, with a business that felt like mine. The betrayal still hurt, sure, but it no longer defined me. What defined me was the choice I finally made. Not blood, not fear, not guilt, but loyalty, trust, and the belief that starting over was worth it.